Yay, we did it.
We got on.
Hi, Charey.
Hello.
We were, for everyone who's watching, we were just trying to do this as a Facebook Live and it wasn't working properly. So here we are back to good old Zoom.
Yeah. Yes.
Yay. And I'm excited about this conversation. I have been learning about my human design and really noticing like the things that really feed me and bring me energy. And I actually didn't get much like sleep last night, but I'm noticing like how much energy I have like in preparation for this conversation. So I think that really says a lot about what we're going to be talking about. And so if you're just joining, Charey is an amazing constellation facilitator and has some really amazing offerings that I'm personally super excited about, because as someone who's been receiving constellation work, and I guess I could just say like hanging out in the field with the field, building a relationship with it, I'm excited to kind of go into a deepening of a relationship. So just to kind of back up a little bit and start, if someone's watching right now and they don't really know what the field is, what constellation is, I know that you and Logan Sparks, Dr. Logan Sparks, who you're going to be partnering with all of these events, you call it the knowing field. So tell us, what is the knowing field? What is constellation work? How would you describe it? It's very unique.
I'm not entirely sure, because the knowing field, it seems to be something that works with me when we work in constellation and people that do constellation. It seems to be something that that provides us all the information that we need when somebody has an inquiry that is meaningful to them. And it also is something that the more that I've been working with this experience of learning constellation and then facilitating constellation and then and having my own experiences with it, and now moving to doing a little bit of teaching about how to become a facilitator, it keeps informing me. In constellations, there's something that happens where we have an inquiry, a sort of a deep yearning for somebody, and I'm watching the signs and I'm feeling them, and everybody that's participating has a feeling sense of something, and then there's often a very big shift that happens, even if the material constellations, even if the trauma that was held or the storyline is hard, usually people feel buoyant and open. And when clarifies, when something opens up. And like the process of learning it and being drawn to do it, and being drawn to do the next piece of work for me, and then being drawn after some years to facilitate constellation, and now being drawn to do a little bit of teaching for people to learn facilitation. Each was like I had to wait. People would say, would you facilitate constellation, or would you teach us how to do this and I had to wait until something was like, okay, now I'm ready.
Yeah, I remember I don't remember if it was you or Logan, one of you said that you can't constellate for someone because the person has to be ready, like to move the thing. So I feel like that's what I'm hearing you say, is that the community has been ready to take this deeper dive. And I think in the field, something clicked, right? And so now there's these new offerings coming, which I'm so excited about. I just want to share, I was thinking before our call about what about constellation do I really love it? There's so much. I feel like I could just have a whole podcast about just constellations because it's so fascinating. But one thing that really came to me was that, in our world, I guess now we're seeing models for community healing, like ecstatic dance. And I think of, constellation as a community healing modality. And I think that Indigenous groups really had that wisdom and in our, Western world, so much of therapy and healing happens like in a dyad or isolated sometimes even. And so I was just thinking about how beautiful these community-based models are, where we get to witness one another. We get to have this somatic practice together. And it's such a huge part of constellations. And I know that you and Logan have been experimenting with community constellations, which I got to experience at the last one. And I mean, I was blown away at how relevant the topic and everything that unfolded in that constellation, like how it had been so relevant to what I had been working on. So that's one thing that I was just thinking was one of my favorite things that I wanted to share. Yeah, is there anything you want to share about that community aspect of it? I just feel like I'm just really feeling like that's an important piece of it.
That's
that we can, yeah.
so cool that you see it that way. I mean, I feel so drawn to experience it in the group. I mean, I see people privately, and we're able to do constellation even on Zoom, and that's miraculous. And yet there's something about, even when somebody has been piecing together pieces of their story or their greater story, I love it if they can join the group.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually, I think that seeing and feeling others representing for them can, without necessarily knowing anything about the story, sometimes not knowing anything about their parents or their family or their big dilemma, they can get a lot of evidence that feels like really,
Mm-hmm.
that's helpful. And then the other piece is that we all have wounds of love. We all,
Mm-hmm.
and the path of being in it for one of the people, or in it together, and being ourselves in something that is universal, and really getting that universality of that, like that we're not separate very often when we're suffering. And
Yeah.
we go into secrets, which is one of the things that precipitates trauma and precipitates people carrying it generation after generation.
Intergenerational trauma specifically, yeah.
Is that we isolate with our own pain. We don't deal with our grief. We hide it. It's kind of just a commonplace thing to not feel anymore, to hide, or to be impolite, to not be bawling in the streets, like, if you've lost your loved ones, or to be, it's just everybody's
hide it. Mm-hmm.
So when we come together and people have a significant shift in front of each other and feel it together, it just feels natural. It feels like our natural way of being, and it in my opinion realigns us with our humanity and our more than even with humans,
Mm-hmm.
all species, with all life.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to jump into kind of what you guys are specifically focusing on and offering, but just to kind of wrap this little section up, I feel like the other piece of this community piece is just how somatic the constellations become, where there's people moving their bodies and bodies are interacting, and there's oftentimes people crying, people hugging, like, yeah, there is something about the human connection that happens. And the other thing I heard you say is, and this was something I was going to ask you. I know for myself, as someone who's participated in constellations, I can get so much from either representing or even just witnessing, and being in the space. And even if it's not my story, not my ancestors, there's this interconnectedness where we almost, I don't know. My question was going to be like, as a facilitator, do you sometimes feel like you get the benefit of the work just from being in the field in this kind of communal experience? Do you feel like you receive the benefits in your own way?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What I do is, it's a different place. So when somebody's there and they have a deep inquiry, and we're looking at a constellation and they're witnessing it. I'm, as a facilitator, I'm holding a space for them, and I'm not falling into their constellation. I'm making sure that I'm witnessing everything that I can, and I'm doing it with a lot of fascination and curiosity. And I'm perceiving, and someone might start weeping, or they're feeling really sad. And that's part of learning to facilitate well, is to not try to help them or save them, but to actually continue to be a witnessing. Like I'm the field that opens up, that's informative. I become more connected to that greater field than individual story, and even smaller to their particular wounding. It's like something really wide. And just by doing that in my life, I often can contact a greater field. So I'm having some conflict, or I'm struggling with some dilemma, and I'm more ready to look at the signs, to see the bigger picture. Life, and to be like, oh, this is really fascinating. This is coming into look at how everything's orchestrating perfectly. Oh, look at how that mistake that I just don't ever seem to make, and yet it fell perfect to this horrible situation. But so I have that sense of a larger picture, and that's what facilitating gives me a great deal of. Whereas when people come in and they participate, and they come in and they represent, they get pieces of other people's stories that they may have needed. They may have needed to understand some aspect of themselves. They may have needed to feel what it would feel like to be a particular mother. They may need to feel the kind of feeling that the earth has about something. So it's like it gives them almost like exactly the right information. Like almost, they time and time again, the people that come to participate, and they'll just come event after event, even if they're not necessarily working on their own particular boo-boo, if you will, their own situation. They want to be in the field and feel it, and they have breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough, and it's very gentle and subtle. And then they also benefit from that larger belonging, that sense of, oh wow, that relief that happens when something is clarified and understood and felt together.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, and it's so unique, and I just really hope more and more people get to experience it. So tell me specifically, so the past few events that you and Logan have done has really just been this beautiful topic. It's what brought me, because I was like, dealing with my own heartbreak, and kind of a year into like being really steeped in codependence recovery work. And so I felt really drawn naturally to this whole series that you guys did. And I had a most amazing constellation the last time. My life feels very, very tangibly different right now. And so, this upcoming event, you're kind of continuing to riff on this idea of like healing the wounds of love. Like, how do we move past these like ground shattering or heart shattering experiences that in some ways it's like our most internal wounding, right? That abandonment wound that maybe we felt from our own family, and then kind of back generations. So do you want to maybe just say a little bit about this particular topic of healing the wounds of love, and maybe tell us a little bit about what you've been doing with it, and then also like what's going to be happening this April as you continue to explore this topic, because I know it's evolving like each time you guys do a new event.
The field handed us the topic for sure. Logan and I both are doing our work all the time, and we're touched by that deep yearning for people to have love, to really have love. And it's in many different forms. I mean, the wounds of love might be between a child and a parent, but we were both talking a great deal personally about how much power that topic has in our life, and how much power it has in people's lives, how it's like a force that moves into something, often something we don't want to be in, or it moves us through something, and we become changed as a result of it. And very often, because of the trauma in ancestral, in our history, our personal history, the way that we've made up our psyche, and also in our ancestors, we will be playing out some of their suffering, and or healing through it, and moving to new places and discovering who we are in the middle of it. And so that's like one of the biggest forces, is this force of love, this force of creation, the force of romantic love. And it's undeniable when it happens, because it changes you. And to and that's the thing, is most of the root of the trauma that's held in the body is from that denial, from like, oh, it was wrong for us to do this, or it was, some tragedy happened, or it's just unacceptable, or somebody murdered somebody. It's all these terrible stories, but it comes from denial and resistance. And then what is examined in a very visceral way, like you were saying, it's somatic, it's embodied. In fact, we try to eliminate a lot of the speaking, so that it's not in the head, that it's really embodied and felt, and the room breathes with you, the people breathe with you, and the right person comes to the door accidentally in the moment to just stand in as that next person that you needed to hear from, or it gives us a sign that there's a new element that's coming in through the door, literally sometimes. So yeah, I don't know if that was an answer to your question, but
yeah, definitely. And there's a couple of things I feel like I want to share that would be really helpful in this regard. So there were two things that came to me, kind of stream of consciousness, as I was listening to you speak. One is that, and I feel like, just kind of like a little plug, right? Like as I've been diving more into like, what does it mean? What is the erotic, right? Like, what is the erotic? And I feel like when I think about erotic energy, I think about primordial energy, right? So it's like when someone's in birth, when someone's having sex, it's like when we're in our most raw animal, kind of form. And it would make sense, I read recently in a book on the neuroscience of sex, that when you talk about erotic relationships and sex, we can access some of our deepest sort of subconscious programming in our life. And then if you can access it from like what's going on in our sex lives, then we can actually kind of trace it to these other parts in our lives. And so I was kind of seeing this, like how the ancestral work the ancestral, I guess, wounding is like passed on through our family relationship with our parents, but then we relive those stories with our partners. And so that's why I think accessing this piece is such a powerful way for accessing the bigger kind of network of ancestral grief that is somehow intertwined in the way we show up in relationship, right? Like these things really show up in relationship, not just to our people, right? It can be to our work, to creativity. And that's actually where I want to just share a little personal story, because this last constellation I did, from the very beginning, when I walked into the room, I knew very clearly like what I was there to work on. And we did a group constellation. And I remember looking at the group constellation and be like, I drew this. Like I often will do like doodles when I'm journaling and just kind of doing my own kind of therapeutic artwork. And I was looking at the energy of the constellation. I was like, I just drew this, And so even though I came there with like this really clear intention to let go of a codependent relationship that I had sort of been, for lack of a better word, like really stuck in. And as soon as it happened, and actually that very same night, like I could feel so tangibly when I went up to do my constellation, I felt the shift in my romantic life, like instantly. I went on this like amazing date and all these things, but also this happened simultaneously. And I know this is a big part of the constellation for me, like for my personal life, I have this huge wound, and it's definitely, like I was just talking about last night, how it's so connected ancestrally, which is what I've been finding out about my ancestral line. There's this creative wound. And so in my personal life, the way that's been showing up is that I've always done massage therapy as like my bread and butter, kind of like, this is how I earn money. But for a long time, like as a manifesting generator, like I felt in my gut that this isn't really what I'm supposed to be doing. And, I've kind of gone back and forth because there's the safety, just like in a codependent relationship, there's like the safety of this thing provides security. And how can I let it go? Like, I don't want to abandon it. There's kind of this like love, hate, push, pull. And after I did that constellation, I realized I can't do massage therapy anymore because I'm actually damaging my shoulder. Like my shoulder started hurting, which I feel like often happens, like a physical event will push us, into really evaluating what's next. And I actually woke up on Monday. That was the first day that I think the constellation was like on Saturday. And then on Monday, I woke up and I felt so much fear and anxiety because I actually was like, oh my God. And that whole day, I did some really deep processing about just the fear of like letting go into the unknown of like what's beyond in my life, beyond this like kind of codependent relationship that I had with massage, So for me, it's been all about exploring my creative, authentic expression and like, what do I really want to be doing in the world? And so I just wanted to share that because I feel like, we think we're going in for one thing, but it's this network. And lo and behold, the healing is like even more profound, right, than we can have ever imagined because, our relationship is just one aspect of our life, but how does this reflect in the grand scheme of things? Yeah. Like,
Note if you felt that you had more of your creative spark with you, or that what happened after that. I know that you said that you had a shift and then you were out on a date all of a sudden and you'd been blocked as far as that went. But what signs that, how do you know that there was a shift for you?
oh, huge. Like, first of all, just this openness. The funny thing about the relationship piece is I don't even necessarily feel like I want a relationship or sex right now, which is beautiful. Like I was able to, that following day when I woke up and I was having all the anxiety, I think the anxiety was actually kind of a reprocessing, kind of like I would imagine like, when you're cleaning your house and everything gets crazy before it like settles in again. So I was kind of in that portion of like, feeling the feelings of now who am I when I'm not attached to these false, it's like my false self, right? Versus my true self. And so I actually, gosh, I wrote down that very day, I kind of channeled a list of why relationships that served me, like how relationships actually served me in my wounding, in my inner teen, and I had a profound day of like self-care, doing like all the self-care that day. And then since then, so much has shifted for me. I've been taking regular belly dance classes, which is something I've never taken dance professionally in my life. But as a child, I would have thrived like doing dance, theater, music. And that's always been one of my deepest like grief woundings that I know also came from my grandmother and my mom. And so I've been, taking art classes and painting and really prioritizing time for self-expression. I also like dyed my hair, which I know that sounds like unrelated, but I like my inner teenager is like so happy. I feel like I'm discovering like my favorite colors for the first time and like the sensual relationship that I have to like my own creative expression and how that was almost like thwarted by these codependent relationships that I was creating. So now I'm like, I have a couple of like sweet things that I'm cultivating and I'm still even in connection with this partner that I've moved on from, but there's just this different sense of like, I am my primary partner and I don't feel myself like, I'm very conscious of, like, am I giving up this time right now and sacrificing this time that I have for my own creativity? Like, I'm going to prioritize those things first. I'm not just going to constantly be with someone else, constantly be out on a date, or, and it's like, I don't even really necessarily feel like I want that. Like, it's lovely and it's been fun, but it doesn't feel like this obsessive, like, I have to have this to fill myself up and feel, like I'm worthy. So anyway, I know that's a lot. It's huge. It's actually huge. And I'm really looking forward to this next layer because, part of the work that I've been doing for the past several years is I've been working with people around fertility. And I've seen over and over again that when my clients come to me, they're wanting to create, right? They're wanting to create life. And just even talking about this, like, I feel I have like a sense of reverence for this. I don't want to talk about this lightly because there's just a lot there. There's like layers of trauma. And I feel like when the trauma shows up in our body, there's this very important correlation between how that also connects to our creativity and our voice and our creative expression. And so more and more, as I've been trying to define, like, what does it even mean for me to be an erotic coach or something like that? I'm like, what I really want to do is help people to tune into their authentic expression so that they can authentically express themselves. And so I've seen that in my client relations where I'm like, where is this, like, this child that you want to bring in? Where is the joy? Where is the creativity? Where is the juiciness in your life that would bring in that kind of creative energy? Like, how do you feed yourself? Do you dance? Do you enjoy your meals? Or are you just like eating in the 10 minutes you have in between, in between things? Like, are you enjoying the sensuality of the tastes of your food? Are you going outside in nature? And for a lot of people, it's like, we've forgotten like how to really enjoy and experience pleasure and experience life, like really experience life and what it is to be alive. So I feel like I've often, I've witnessed constellations already, like just by being in the field and working with my clients. Like I've been like, oh, we just did a constellation, so I'm really excited to have more tools. And I think just being in the field, I think teaches you so much. And I'm so excited that our community, I feel like, is leveling up to where now the field is like, okay, you're ready. So I would love to hear you talk about what's happening in April, what's diving into the knowing field, and maybe just tell us the event, tell us the dates, like what kind of opportunities are there? Who is this for? How can people jump in, even if they don't want to do a training? Like, just kind of paint us a picture of what it is that you're creating.
I want to just say, I want to speak to you about a little piece of what you were talked about when you're dealing with clients and they want to bring life, they want to bring a child in, and then you're checking in and you're kind of feeling, is there life there? Is there passion? Is there some joy? Is there some outrageousness or something? It's like life comes through. And just that story was so powerful because I think that one of the big remedies, if you will, for the suffering, generation after generation after generation, is really an understanding that you are here, that you're brought through, that you came from love. You maybe came from thousands of people in love, in passion, and maybe it was totally messed up, but it's like there was some joy coming through because that's where you came from. And so that's like a little piece of when we're watching that feeling starts to happen, in my opinion, in the field. Anyway, so I just wanted to point out that piece, that you're already kind of looking at your clients and wanting to see, the energetics of the babies that they want to birth. The thing that you asked me about is what's the schedule? What are we doing? So look, Dr. Logan Sparks and I have been starting to do this thing once a month called the Knowing Field, Healing the Wounds of Love. And it's usually an afternoon or a day-long event, and people can come and get a constellation, and we have to have a limited amount of people that can do that. We usually only charge $150 per person that does that, and we can take only 6 or 7 or 8, or it depends at 5, depending on the amount of time. But the one on April 8th, we can take up to 7 people to do that because of our time, because we need a lot of time for each constellation. And then everybody else can come for $30. That's what we're doing. And then there's a few people that are already committed to doing, to learning about facilitating. Dive into the knowing field is what I called it. Dive into the knowing field. And on Friday night, we wanted to open it wide to the public, everybody that's had any little taste of constellation, just so that they could get the kind of basic mechanics and some experiential stuff. And that's April 7th, Friday night from 6 to 9. And that's only $10 to check it out.
So I just want to clarify that the Friday night, that's like, okay, you're interested in the constellations, but you're not 100% sure. You want to make sure that this is for you and feel it out. Come on Friday and experience it. And you get to decide then if you want to stay for the whole weekend and commit to the training. Otherwise, it's like a standalone thing that people can just attend on Friday for $10.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then for those people that want to go further, they need to come to the full next day, because they will get some constellation done. They will want to observe all the constellations and and have questions.
Right.
Getting kind of the basics about how this works and how you hold a space for constellation, and maybe who created Constellation, Bert Hellinger, and more about that story and all the stories of people that have come, what kinds of constellations are in the world. So we would want them to start to observe all the constellations, including their own, from a facilitator standpoint, and then have questions. So they need to be there all day, 10 to 6 on April 8th for the regular workshop that we're doing. And the next day,
Wounds of Love.
Yes, that one.
And I also just clarify, because I know this can be confusing. So for the people that are doing the constellations on that day, those are the people that are like, oh my God, I have a wound. I need to do this constellation. I'm feeling a calling. They reach out to you guys. You have a list. There's only about 6 spots.
Right.
And it costs $150. That's what I did last time. So I was a participant, but I paid to receive the constellation. And then all of the other people who come, those are the people who hold the container. Those are the people that are getting those like little micro constellations by witnessing and holding space as a, what do you call it? Like as a representative.
Yes.
Those people that are invited to come and pay $30. And from what I understand too, like if people in that situation need to leave an hour early, like it's a little looser because they're there, they're paying $30, they're there to represent. But if they're like, I got to go home at 6, they can leave a little earlier or whatever.
Yeah, and the same thing with the person who's coming for a constellation. So, I mean, and they're only coming for that. They have to let us know. We'd love it if they could come on time. And then if they have to leave, and then maybe if they have to leave and come back, that's fine. But with the people interested in learning facilitation, we need them in the room.
Yeah.
And the whole time. Friday night, we need them Saturday all day, like us, in the room, observing and present. And so
and who wouldn't want to be there? Because me and you are going to be there. Logan's going to be there. It's going to be fun times.
Yes, is great. And then, which is Easter, we're going to meet with an intimate group of people that are in the very basic learning of facilitation. And that's 1 to 6. And we'll do a little bit more constellation work. We'll answer the questions. We'll explore it from all different angles. And ideally, people walk away with a greater sense of their next step, what they need to do for themselves so that they can become a facilitator, or they walk away with a greater sense of how to handle life differently, how to be
Yeah.
healed.
Yeah.
And it's also going to be a very sweet time.
Yes. Yay. Okay. Thank you. And we're going to post all the information. So if you didn't get it in all of that wordy stuff, it's in writing. And how many spaces do you have left for Saturday? It's Constellation.
Saturday we have 5 more spaces, four,
Okay. Great.
5 more spaces. So
Perfect.
Logan and I, and he's like, I've got one. I'll be like, oh, I think I've got 2 people. So sometimes we have to double check, like before. Oh, wait, we gotta at this point. And
Okay. Those are definitely.
facilitating, they're learning to facilitate. We want them to have, they'll get Constellation on Saturday, or they might end up getting Constellation on Friday night and they might get a personal Constellation on Sunday. And then of course, Logan and I are also very personable, and if people need follow-up stuff, we're willing to do that pretty easily.
Yeah, definitely. There's been, I've had situations like that where I'm like, I need a follow up. Some serious stuff is shifting. It's kind of like, I think about it like Jenga, right? Like you pull this one little piece out and the whole tower is like, ah. I just want to share also that I think for people who experiment with plant medicine, I think that some of us have felt this too, but and I think it's the same thing. It's the field, right? Like for me right now, I'm feeling this, whatever is going to happen in April, it's already begun. Like there's this leading up to the constellation. I feel like the field starts to kind of do its work, and so I'm feeling that. And oddly enough, I'm also now feeling the what's beyond April, which is so strange. I don't think I've ever felt that, like the leading up to, and then like I don't know, it's really, really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, because I feel a lot of that. I don't know, I guess I feel moved so much. There's something about what's going to happen that weekend that I'm like crying a bunch. I feel so tender, it's so sweet. I can feel the sweet space already. So that's very exciting to me. And the act of working, Dr. Logan and I working together with a small handful of people on learning the basics of facilitation. I don't know, there's something about that is so nectar right now. and the continuum. I can feel the future.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
More.
Logan about. He's like, I'm like, there's something that's pulling us forward right now. And so we're listening.
I feel it so much. I'm so glad to be a part of it. And there's one other thing I really want to share, just as someone who's attended, I mean, I feel like you've been an ally in my life in all of these different ways. You've seen me grow through some really, really challenging times. And I just want to say about you and Logan both. Well, first, I just want to say that I think I have like a healthy, now from having some experiences in the past, like I feel like I have a healthy, what's the word? Like a healthy, like I feel like I need to feel safe when there's facilitators, and I feel so safe with you and Logan, and the way that there's this feeling of inclusivity and this reverence for the indigenous roots of this work. I know Logan's traveled, all around and worked in Mexico, and I just feel like with different cultures, and I know that the source is just it's a space that's inclusive for people who are, different shapes, different genders, different identity. That makes the space feel so safe. Like I remember at the last constellation just being so glad that there were so many people of color, and there were people like getting prepared to do a Spanish speaking constellation. So I just really want to share that, because I think it's really important, especially when there's people, who are like facilitating a process that really has Indigenous roots. Like, I really think that you both just have this way of creating a space that's safe and inclusive. And so I feel like that's really important to share.
For sharing that. And that's just something that I feel like it's important to continue for, to check and to about them, I think that the process of something moving through me, like this work, is humbling. It's incredibly, and my personality would doubt myself right and left, but something moves through me that's greater than that. And I'm just grateful to have people show up that are teaching me, that they're with me, teaching me, just like you. Just
So
all of how much you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I'm just, the word that's coming to my mind now is like, you guys are so queer. I love it, and I feel like there's something about queer spaces that are like creative and colorful and like, social justice oriented. And like, I just feel like that's really important for people right now. And I really feel like you both hold that space. So yay, we're learning from each other. We should probably wrap up.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to share in closing?
I really appreciate you helping to ask the right questions and sharing your own experiences. And I really look forward to just sharing this with you. And I feel like we're already playing in past, present, future together. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you so much, Charey. I'm just thrilled. Like, really, like, I just feel so energized right now. My cheeks are like warm, and I just feel this energetic, just aliveness, like what it is to be alive. I think that I'm learning that from this work and from the field. So yeah, just excitement all around, and like full body warmth, and excitement to continue to play and learn and grow. And I guess in closing, I also just want to say that, we all talk about ancestral work, and we're engaged with it. Like, we know this is the time for us to be doing this work. And I love that this modality, it just feels like such a tangible way to do this in a community oriented space, that there's just something about that like, we don't have to do it alone. We can feel witnessed, we can get help, like we can literally get people to represent for us. So yeah, there's just something so beautiful about that. And yeah, yay for this work. Yay for you guys and stepping into this new level of leadership in the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zhenya. Thank you so much. Thanks for this interview. And I hope that if people feel a nudge, like a sense of like, yeah, I got to play, I got to check this out, that there's never any pressure, because I never want anyone to be there when they don't feel like they're in the right place. So it's always about just like, tune in and allow us to support you in tuning further into yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now the field is telling me to say like, and if you're feeling like I absolutely have to be there and like you're not sure how to pull it off, like just reach out, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
If you look at Constellation facilitators across the world, our rates are really, really affordable. And we're still even willing to do a little bit of flexing. We just need to see a person's full commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel the vibe. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.